Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the virtual cathedral of the First Church of the Presence of God. You have to close your eyes to see the cathedral because we are that cathedral. We are the adytum, that temple that is the true temple and in which God is celebrated. And that is the purpose of the Church of the Presence of God, because we celebrate the indwelling deity within. It hasn't come to fullness in us yet. We are on our way. But we know that at some point we will be unified with our Creator. And this is what we hope to celebrate here at the First Church of the Presence of God. Now, it's probably might even be a couple of episodes yet before I had to make sure the clock is there for me to see, before I'm able to use the new technology. I'm all right brain, so I'm not as quick as many people in that regard. I'm intuitive, and so sometimes it takes me a little while to catch up. But then I can grasp the thing entirely because there's something that happens with the intuitive force that brings it about. Or so I've come to understand. Now, I'm not a Christian, and there are reasons for that, but Jesus Christ is probably my greatest hero, and I try, and as haphazardly as I manage, to walk in his footsteps. I was not always connected in the way that I am now. I was wild and impulsive, and it took a few traumatic events to bring me round to a level of clarity. I was chasing the right thing, but I was chasing it the wrong way. And now I think I'm chasing it correctly. So here in this church, we welcome all the manifestations of God in as much as they appear to large masses of the populations. Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Sufism. These are all things that I personally recognize as being inspired and that I celebrate and that I've gained great spiritual awakenings from in each one of them. And I've tried to follow one particularly this way or that, and I'm unable to. I wind up extracting from all of them some portion of what makes up my particular spiritual path. And yes, I'm hopeful that as time passes, I'll be able to communicate this a little better. I've often spoken about this technique. I've referred to it as snorting. And I came about seeing it, or I came into possession of it, because the man on the beach that I met, the teacher that I met, and I still do not know who that was, that's what he was doing. He kept expelling breath. And then I came to understand intuitively, after I had my Kundalini experience, which he generated from thousands of miles away, I came to understand that it was the process was for casting out thought, for emptying your mind, because all of our minds have become cluttered with all sorts of furniture, and it looks like an attic where everything has been stored. And the essential parts of ourselves have been covered over by all of these things that we become attached to, that we have put different values upon in material life. But if you are able to do this snorting technique, And constantly, no matter what thought comes into your head, to drive it out of your head, and I've done this, your head becomes completely empty. And what you have then done is moved all of this stuff that's been stored in the attic out of the way. And then all that remains is what has been essentially there all along, that which is the integral portion of you. And it's been my experience that this is so, and I've continued on with it, and many things have happened, and many of them I can't talk about because they'll sound too fantastic, and it's just enough that I believe them and that I know them. Rather than to talk about them, perhaps these things can be expressed more indirectly, and that might be more appropriate. But anyway, I thought I would bring that up because I found it to be very important to me, and it's part of the yoga that I practice. And I think that if you perform this, just casting thoughts out of your head all the time, no matter what the thought is, everything that comes in, because our minds are an airport, and planes are coming in and taking off all the time. And a lot of the traffic that comes in, we didn't even ask for, or sometimes they have to do with subliminal appetites and urges that we call forth. And sometimes they're like part of a great air force that's sent out by certain agendas and intelligences which are there to deceive us and distract us and draw us down into situations that are, well, like you see in the world now. And if you can cast all of this out, then what's real and what's powerful and what's more than all of the temporary things, then that comes forward into the forefront. And that becomes the force that guides you, because it's been there all the time, but you can't hear it because all the rest of the stuff in the attic has been chattering and making noise as if you were on a city street and horns are going off and conversations are happening. It's hard to hold on to a sense of self when you are in the midst of this competition for existence. And this is why the wise often go away into the wilderness. They walk out of society altogether because in the simplest way, they need to clear their heads. And that's what it's all about. And now, the pursuit of God is enough for everyone. There are a lot of people who do it occasionally, or they try to live by a particular moral code based on religion they got from their parents or things that have come to them in the process of living. But there aren't that many people who see it as a full-time occupation, something to be a part of everything they do. When they're eating, when they're sleeping, when they're conversing with other people, when they're working, when they're talking, when they're thinking, everything that they're doing in some way ties in with their relationship with the Almighty. And after a while then, this comes more and more fully into you, and then it becomes stronger than your ability to even walk away from it, just as any habit might be. Bad habits the same way if you've ever tried to break one. Good habits too can be very hard to break. Now, I've mentioned at another time that I am reading this fellow Ivanhov, and recently I was reading, and he was talking about how purity was the one thing that you absolutely have to possess if you want to come to the gates of true wisdom, if you want to come into higher understandings, if you want to be able to experience initiation. Because if you're impure, you won't be invited. But purity is something that can be cultivated, and you do it by putting all of your attention upon things that are pure and no longer putting them on things that are impure. Sometimes it's hard to tell which is which, but if you're committed and determined, then this is going to happen for you. I want to read a small portion from this for you. He's talking about Hermes Trismegistus and the emerald tablet, in which he says, as above, so below. This is the one force. The sun is its father, the moon is its mother, the earth is its nurse. This is a strong force of all forces. He says, this strength of all strengths is sexual energy. For what other form of energy is there in the whole universe compared to it? Besides, Hermes Trismegistus tells us that it comes from the sun. The father thereof is the sun. The sad thing is, though, that man has so debased and defiled himself that there is nothing sunlight like in the act by which men fertilize women. However, it is destined to recapture that likeness, and not only the sexual act, but all the acts of our daily lives must become sun-like, that is to say, luminous, warm, and life-giving. In the Sephirotic tree, Kether, the highest Sephiroth, is linked to the Father, Tiphereth to the Son, and Yesod to the Holy Spirit. When I talked to you about the mysteries of Yesod, I told you that it was there in Yesod that pure love was to be found, and that this is why the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit mentioned in the Gospels is the blasphemy against love. The Holy Spirit is that energy which is love, that energy which, when it springs from purity, takes the upward path. Kundalini is simply the fire of the Holy Spirit dormant in man. And it is through purity and purity alone that it awakens in Yesod. Rises to Tiphereth, the heart, where it becomes light, and thence to Kether, the crown chakra, where it becomes omnipotence. So Kundalini force is identical with that strength of all strengths, of which Hermes Trismegistus speaks. This force, which is capable of creating a life, is a condensation of the light of the sun. In an initiate who manages to sublimate it, it returns to its etheric state and manifests as light shining through his eyes and from his brain. And this is what we like to consider here at the First Church of the Presence of God, that we are involved in a process, and we're conscious of this process. We know that we're engaged in it. So everything that we do becomes meaningful. When we behave in a certain way in life, how we relate to everyone we run into, the spirit with which we approach everything that we do, and indeed the difference between the things we do and that we don't do, all of these are based upon this process which we are seeking to, accelerate, because we are also in the time of an apocalypse, and a great many things are going to be decided now. Oh yeah. Now, those of you who will read tomorrow's post in Visible Origami, well, it'll be today's when you see this, and the post will be out too. We'll see that there I've gone into a lot more detail about this whole matter. We are in a time, and I can't really give you the measurements. I have some idea what's going to happen, but I don't know when. But there is going to be incredible transformation that is going to take place. And what is going to happen is that the awakening that's already been going on, and many people are experiencing it, is going to intensify dramatically. It's going to go from the little nudge that has been so far to whew, like Wagner on the stereo, okay? Well, it could be Beethoven. Well, for some it could be Led Zeppelin, I don't know. But anyway, it's going to be dramatic. And what it's all about is the return of God as the avatar come to set things right, because everything is going wrong now at this time. Look at the state of California. Look at what's going on with the migrants in Europe and the attempt to bring it all here into this country and literally destroy this country. And a whole lot of that is all about creating more and more Democratic voters so that America can return to communists. That's the intention that's going on. And but this isn't going to, I don't think, be permitted because God is going to be intruding into the mix far more dramatically than anything we have seen so far into this time. And is going to be knocking from within at the human heart, all over the world. In every human heart is going to come knocking. And it's going to be strong enough now that those who are hesitant, or those who couldn't hear it all, are going to really start paying attention. And many will be saved in this way, because there will be enough of them left in their humanness that they will respond to the force of this love striking them in this area. And what that is the second coming of Christ. And that is what it's going to be. It's not going to be in some individual that is going to show up somewhere, although it will show up in various individuals who may have been chosen to be spokespersons for this. But what's really going to happen is it's going to come alive in the hearts of humanity. I'm not even sure the majority of the hearts of humanity. In fact, it may not be that many at all. We'll just have to see who can be pulled away from the intoxication of this incredibly powerful dream that they're all caught up in. And it's very difficult to free oneself. And there are others whose heart is going to be hardened against this. And woe unto them for that matter, because that's an unfortunate place to be in. I'm not even going to go into the details of that. Oh, Lord. But this is what's going to happen. The second coming is going to come in the hearts of humanity. And for those who hear the call, in that awakening, suddenly an intelligence is going to appear in the human mind. And to each according to their faith, and to each according to the investment they've made in it so far. There's going to be a hierarchy in terms of what you hear and what you don't hear, and what you learn and what you don't learn, and how dramatically you're changed, or perhaps less than that, less dramatically changed in some cases. Not everybody's capable of that, has wanted that much, or has been driving with the great intensity necessary to get there. But it is going to show up, because this new age is now coming upon us too, and this is the Age of Aquarius. And the signature for the Age of Aquarius is the Age of Brotherhood. And so what is going to happen is a commonality is going to awaken in the hearts of a great many people, and they're all going to be brought together in a common understanding. And it's not something that people are going to talk about or hash out or anything else, or write, bylaws and all the rest of this about. It's not going to be like that. There's going to be an intuitive awareness of one another, and a sense that this person understands what I understand. It will be, very intuitive. It's going to be a higher sense that's going to come upon us. And many people have never had this sense before. All of us have had it now and then, when suddenly you get this flash, and you go, oh, or like, I've been here before, which we call deja vu, or some other sense of like, what is this? This has such a greater meaning than anything else that is, but I can't quite put my hand on it. Well, it's similar to that. And we're going to sense that in this person's heart is something that is very similar to what is in my heart. And this is going to be the genesis of this golden age that is coming. And I don't know the details. I just know it's coming. And I know what I see in the world. And I see where the attention of most people is at. And so I can get an awareness of what's going to be required for a lot of people to wake up. And a great many things are happening right now to generate this awakening in people, okay? This climate change. Now, a lot of it is BS, as we know, and it's there that people are working it for their own particular agendas and profits. But of course, it is changing, and there's all sorts of rumblings in the earth, and not just that. Outside from nature becoming far more active in a lot of ways with the volcanoes and different things, there's also all this turmoil occurring socially. There's what's happening in France and in Paris right now with the yellow vests, and there's what's happening in parts of South America and in Asia, what's happening in Hong Kong. Revolution is in the air. And there's a tremendous amount of change that is on our doorstep. And it's going to work out in different ways, and it's really going to depend on where you're at, how it affects you. Because where you're at is going to determine how you act. It's going to determine what you do and what you don't do. And as we know, all action has consequences. Sometimes the consequences are good and sometimes the consequences are bad. And you think a lot of the time when the consequences are bad, that people should have known better. Well, yeah, I look back on my own life and a lot of the mistakes that I made, and it sure did take a lot for me to get clear about certain things. I was impulsive, and I wanted things to go the way I wanted them to go. All the time I was trying to follow the will of God, but at the same time I was being spun around by my own will, which was never focused enough to really land on anything, because there was nothing in this world that I wanted that much anyway. All I really wanted was God. But in the meantime, I had to do things in the world to survive, to get along, to maintain an existence. And oftentimes that leads to us cutting corners, or because we don't have the amount of faith that we should have, we do things that kind of help it along. And that's not necessarily what we should have been doing. We become connivers, we become clever. We find ways of getting what we want, coming at it indirectly and through convoluted means. Before I forget, I want to bring up this other book. It's called Living with the Himalayan Masters. I just finished it for the second, well, more than that. You can see the book's actually coming apart here. Partly because I've been reading it in the sauna on various nights. But, well, I've been reading it slowly and carefully this time. And this book, each chapter is just like 2 or 3 pages, okay? And it's all about the events in the life of this Swami Rama, who had some exceptional karma because he had a spiritual teacher who was pretty awakened. And this book is filled with events, supernatural occurrences, these individuals who live in these caves in the Himalayas, and stories about all of these different personalities. Many, many, many personalities. As you can see, it's quite a thick book. I don't know, hundreds and hundreds, well, almost 500 pages. Anyway, if you read this book, then, and you can believe what's in there, and yet I can give you 30 other books written at different times by different people, like Autobiography of a Yogi, many, many other books in which tales are told about the lives of certain individuals. I've read the works of many, many alchemists, hermeticists, and metaphysicians, and they talk about people in the Western tradition who have accomplished some remarkable things. But here, especially in the East, this is like their forte, okay? And you see tale after tale of what I know to be true stories. And then you would think that a person, after reading a book like that, would think, well, how do I get there? How do I make this happen for me? Well, that's what the First Church of the Presence of God is all about, because by celebrating the presence of God, depending on the intensity and love and faith that you bring into this enterprise, that's how quickly changes will come about. And you'll get help. You'll begin to run into like unique, seemingly coincidental events and serendipitous occurrences and things that will appear in your mind that might be very, very surprising. I can tell you for a fact. And you don't have to join this church or anything. It's just my way of having a vehicle to present these ideas to you, really, if you think about it. But sometimes it's good to read books like this because they can really open your eyes to what's possible. And when you see what these people are capable of, I mean, this book profoundly affected me, as have many of them. And I've read so many of them now, and I've had so much confirmation that, my goodness, I mean, I really don't know what to tell you. Read this book for sure, but look inside. Try to understand that what is happening inside of you is far more important than what's happening outside of you. And everything that does happen outside of you is dependent on what's happening inside of you. Indeed, everything you see in the world, you value this way or that way, you give it a certain definition as to its importance, whether it's good, whether it's bad. The entire way that you define your world is based on what's happening within you. Well, you could be wrong about a whole lot of things, I certainly found out that I was. I had to make a lot of different adjustments, in my thinking. And sometimes it's a very good idea. And that's why this casting out these thoughts can become very powerful. Whenever things are coming that are depressing you, suddenly you feel down because we have these biorhythmic things that bring these like unpleasant states of mind into our life. Cast it out, cast it out, cast it all out constantly. And then what's left is bliss. There's a joy that comes because all that's left is the presence. All of this other stuff that's been dragging you down and messing with you, and all these invisible forces out here that are going out of their way to make you feel depressed or to get you involved in living wrong. It's so clear to me now, it certainly wasn't for a very long time, but I'm so grateful for the things that I have found out, and I'm compelled to share them. And I know they're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And so if there are things about my presentation or what I'm saying that pisses you off, ignore me and don't pay any further attention to me. But I know there will be a number of you out there who will get something from this, and it is to those people that I am presenting this. And I don't have to justify or explain myself to anyone else. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. You don't like Walmart, go to Costco. You don't like Costco, go to Bloomingdale's. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and in any case, the love of God has been awakened in my heart, and I want to share it with you. I want to share the love that God has awakened in my heart with you, whomever you are, free of charge, nothing attached. And I want to tell you about what it is that I've experienced and what I've seen, and hope that maybe it might serve to inspire you or help you or give you encouragement if that's what you need, or maybe even something useful like casting everything out. Don't be depressed anymore. Don't be uncertain. Don't be any of those things that have been plaguing you. Cast them out. Keep casting them out. And the answers to all the problems and things that you have are going to appear anyway. You're going to be moved right out of whatever these difficulties have been. My friends, I have to go. Where did the time go? We're already up on 30 minutes again. So many blessings upon you. I hope this wasn't too disjointed and coming from all directions. And I hope that there was some things in here that were useful to you. Please let me know about it in the comments. And if you have advice or criticisms, you can tell me these things, and I will make what adjustments I feel are appropriate if it's helpful to the entire schematic, as it were. So anyway, many blessings upon you. And may the love of God flood your heart and transform your life. Yes.